Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2019 crime thriller titled The Good Liar. Now, The Good Liar runs for 1 hour and 49 minutes long. It is directed by Bill Condon. It is produced by Bill Condon and Greg Yolen. The script was written by Jeffrey Hatcher. It is based off of the novel by Nicholas Surley, also titled The Good Liar. The score was done by Carter Burwell. The cinematography by Tobias Schleisler. It's a long name. And it was edited by Virginia Katz. And the stars of the movie are Helen Mirren, Ian McKellen, Russell Tovey, Jim Carter, Mark Lewis Jones, Laurie Davidson, Bill Dunster, Johannes, Haukur, Johansson, Tunji, Kasim, Spike White, Nell Williams, Celine Buckens, and Bessie Carter. Now, it doesn't matter whether The Good Liar was going to be good or bad, but one thing that we could always count on was that we were going to be treated to solid performances from both stage and screen legends like Dame Helen Mirren and Sir Ian McKellen. And granted, the movie itself stands alone as an engaging suspense thriller, but once they start delving into the incoherent plot twists that fail to make any connection to the main plot point, this is when the film loses its momentum. It is around this pivotal point where director Bill Condon, who provided some wonderful character arcs around his story, that he begins to feel pressured to follow along the novel this movie was based on by Nicholas Cyril, and it was adapted by his screenwriter Jeffrey Hatcher. The Good Liar is vocally about outsmarting one another to see which one will go out on top. And of course, as we all know, one is going to come out the victor, the other is going to hit rock bottom. It does a fair job of manipulating us into thinking it will go one way, but in reality, it's counteracting their real intentions by going the opposite direction. And then you sometimes have to ask yourself, why did they go this way? And what is the connection? That is where things start to get a bit confusing and a bit muddled. It does a fair job of manipulating us into thinking it will go one way, but in reality, it's counteracting their real intentions by going the opposite direction. At first glance, it may seem like a good idea at first, but it lacks in the direction of the original intentions of the story, making things quite a bit muddled up in trying to get its message across. But still, hey, fortunately, thanks to the strong performances by Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen, that they could still hold it together, even if the film is below their standards. It's just that the ending, why did it have to go by way of being so confusing that it makes us at times want to scratch our heads and wonder what just transpired? And does it make any kind of connection to the original intentions of the story? It just seems to appear very randomized out of nowhere, and looks like it was just handled at the 11th hour with no reason, no rhyme, no purpose, and you don't get very much from this outcome. This is where the big weakness in this movie is. I mean, everything seemed to have worked out just fine during the first half and even a bit of the second half of the movie, but then by the time you get around to the last half hour, what just happened, what just transpired. Because in the end, I turned out to be quite confused. So we have Ian McKellen, he stars as Roy, a con artist who feels that modest scams are below his standards and splitting it with his associates. He has been known for being sort of like a small time scam artist, like, a small fry. He just basically does these little scams for very little money. Obviously, he's definitely an expert in his craft since he's been doing it pretty much most of his life. It seems like he's an old pro, but he's not really getting anywhere with these little small time scams because in the end he's not making that much of a profit. Of course, he has to split it with his associates. And unfortunately, his associates want their piece of the pie, so to speak, so he's not getting very much out of it. So then he tries his luck in conning someone who is definitely more rich, more privileged, and this will help benefit himself. That will definitely set him for life as he's getting a little too old. He's coming along in age, and he is contemplating retirement. And I guess since he wants to retire big, and and I think he has the right person who he can con himself into in hopes that he can inherit whatever fortune she has to offer. So Roy finds his next target a match by way of online dating. A widowed former history professor named Betty, played by Helen Mirren. Now, Betty who has inherited the money from her late husband, took up online dating as a means to fill the void and to seek another companion besides her overprotected grandson Stephen, played by Russell Tovey. Her grandson's name is Stephen, but the actor is Russell Tovey. Sorry about that. Roy plays off the charm scheme with ease, trying to win his way into her heart so that he can get into her fortune, and Betty finds it in her heart to nurture this elderly gentleman. When I think about her nurturing this Roy individual, helping out Roy, you sometimes tend to think about how scam artists operate. You see, scam artists have this bad habit of of playing these scam games, and their main target demographic will always be the elderly. Why do they choose the elderly over a much younger generation, like somebody who's in their 30s or 40s or 20s? Well, simple. Because in their minds they think elderly people are naive and that they will bite in to any kind of scheme that they have proposed to them. They will do all these kind of things. They will try to butter up the their clients. They'll tempt them with love and affection and all kinds of other assorted sweet nothings. Oh, you'll probably get a fortune in your future. You'll probably, oh, I'll date you. I want to marry you. I want to date you. But it's all just a bunch of bogus. Next thing you know, they're going to be asking you for money because they have problems. They can't get money out of a bank or something like that. So then they'll ask you for some financial contribution, And of course, these elderly people who are allegedly gullible and naive, well, they usually tend to bite into their pity. They'll give them the money, but will they be satisfied? Of course not. They're gonna eventually start asking for more money and more until they become broke. And that's exactly what they'll do. They're just gonna keep asking for more. So in some ways, you hear about these kind of things, about these online scammers, and sometimes you think that Betty is probably going to be just another statistic, only to discover that Betty is not as stupid as we all think. She's not as naive or as gullible as we all think. She's going to play off him just like he's going to try to play off of her. This is just a battle of mind games between two elderly people who may probably know more than what even we could actually anticipate. I mean, many times you think that Betty is like when you see her and Roy connect and him trying to play off, you sometimes just want to go to the screen and you just want to say to her, "Don't do it. It's a scam. He's not who he thinks he is. He doesn't have knee problems. He just wants to seek into your fortune and try to wring out every last dollar from your safe." Of course, we all know Steven definitely does not like this Roy individual, and he would probably do anything possible to get this Roy individual out of her life forever. But Betty just still wants to continue nurturing this con artist. Things start to backfire on Roy when an old cohort named Vincent, played by Jim Carter, as he persuades Roy to seek a financial arrangement with Betty by fighting bad knee problems. Roy's diabolical plans aren't very concealed here, as his reign of mischief starts from the opening scenes as he and Vincent try to scam a pair of real estate agents from their investment, which involves a tropical getaway. Most of the time, Roy has everything under control and makes a ton of money in the process. But he can't make way in keeping it all because it all comes down to his financial security whittled down, making him back looking for more people to scam in hopes of making more money. Well, as you all know, he's getting kind of old. He's kind of, like down to his last wire. He wants to retire, so he wants to make this one last scam with Betty to be his final, which will put him in that same level of financial security, so he'll be set to life, and that he probably doesn't have to go into the retirement scheme ever again. Roy's smooth talking is proven effective as he and Betty eat out at a restaurant and they both exchange interests and speak small nothings in old school English ways with each other, as he finds that Betty's kindness is definitely, truly like putty in his hands. The con artist's mind games continue on in the greater hour of the movie as Condon succeeds in keeping things engaging while also having great moments of high tension as the viewers try to see who will come out of this scheme the victor. The focus of this movie is the progressive relationship between Betty and Roy, as her hospitality makes her the perfect target as she caters constantly towards his needs and wants. He is faking knee injuries. He is, she's giving him, all kinds of nurturing treatments. She takes him to a private house to stay, where she gives him a bed, she gives him breakfast. She practically treats him almost like he's as if he's royalty when he's really below the depths of humanity. That's who he is. He goes so far as to have her escort him to his apartment. She also takes him for rides in her luxurious car and finds him a room in her posh suburban abode, exploiting her wealth, making him all giggly inside as he hopes what's hers will become his. I mean, she's just a perfect foil for these elderly victims to scam artists. But then we start to realize that she's not as gullible as we all like to think she is. I mean, there is a big revelation that comes near the end. I just wish it was just planned out a little bit better. While this is happening, her grandson Stephen can't understand why his grandmother could be so naive about this scoundrel. He knows deep down inside that he's just a con artist, a scammer, and a scoundrel who's just out to get her money and nothing more. He maintains a watchful eye on Roy, but Roy starts to make a pass once Stephen is out of town. Through Condon's steady direction and Hatcher's colorful characters, we can see McKellen at comfort with the director. In his fourth collaboration with Condon, he feels confident and joyous playing the role of Roy and capturing the essence of how much of a scumbag he really is. Mirren is just perfect as she pairs with McKellen, and it goes to show you that these two screen legends have some really good chemistry between each other. And she plays off the role as a woman who's out to find love as we pity her need of grief, but we know too well she can't be that gullible to fall for Roy's charms, but we still can't get over it. And in the end, it also tells us that actually, in the end, we actually were all led to believe that he was onto her. But then, once the startling revelation comes on, we discovered that all this time, it wasn't he that was onto her, but she was actually on to him. That's right. You thought that the con artist was gonna get the win, but it was actually the victim that was actually the one who was playing on to him. As later on, they eventually, I mean, it all started once they take a trip to, I don't remember where it was it Germany or Austria? I don't remember. All seems fine in the good, okay, it was Germany. All seems fine in The Good Liar until Roy and Betty go on a trip to Germany, which is where the relationship just doesn't just fizzle. Unfortunately, it doesn't fizzle, it burns. The sudden tainted behavior and revelations feel too rushed and happened way too suddenly that ruined a great portion of the movie. It's like Condon had to take pages right out of Cyril's novel to come to a climax. Maybe he was running out of time, maybe he was running out of resources, but it's just that the revelations just suddenly happened way too soon, way too fast, and it just leaves us with a lot of empty space in between. That there really just wasn't a connection. It just happened too rushed and too sudden. So then it comes to a climax as the characters had issues they needed sorted out. But then it all goes downhill from there. Eventually it just loses its suspense, and the sliminess of Roy goes off subject to his con games. It's not a complete abomination, but it's way too off kilter when rehashing scenes from the novel to end the movie. Okay, so once they arrive in Germany, then all of a sudden the startling revelations come out, and that it actually appears that Betty's real name is some German name. I forget. I do know that Roy's real name is actually Hans. I believe Betty's real name is actually Gretchen. And that actually these two seem to have known each other, because at one time they were actually lovers growing up in Germany. I believe he was some sort of an English tutor who was teaching her English, but instead of being her teacher, he ended up raping her when she was young. And then you actually ask yourself, where does it go from here? And then when she also does it, when all these other revelations start to come about, she ends up wiping out whatever money he has left, till he was left with almost next to nothing. Of course, once these revelations come out, he eventually ends up just practically losing his mind. Oh yeah, he's gonna retire, alright. I mean, he was gonna retire, but he wasn't gonna retire a rich guy. Instead, he's gonna retire in a nursing home in a perpetual catatonic state once all these startling revelations come out. So in the end, just when you always thought that Roy was going to come out the victor, well, I guess he just picked the wrong person to con, as she caught on. Oh, and it's also been revealed that this grandson of hers isn't actually really a grandson, but actually an undercover cop who was been protecting her. So in the end, I mean, as much as I liked to have saw the con artist get his comeuppance, and well deservedly, it's just that the whole connections between everything that has transpired from the first half of the movie through about most of the movie to the final half hour. The final half hour just kind of ruined everything, because it just kind of like stepped out of the line. It stepped out of the line from the whole narrative of the story. It's just like it just happened all of a sudden. It just happened too fast and too soon. I mean, if they would have just weighed down a little more information that would lead to the starting revelations that came about at the end, maybe things would have worked out for the best. Maybe things probably would have worked out better. So performance-wise, I really enjoyed the performances from both Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen. And yeah, Russell Tovey does a great job as Stephen. And Jim Carter, he's great as playing Vincent, who was in on this all along. And it was another great story of where a scoundrel gets his comeuppance in the end, while the victim gets to live her life free from any other kind of scam artist. And we also know that she's not this vulnerable elderly lady who falls victims for scams, and that she's actually one of the many who actually are the ones. I mean, it was actually quite cool that she was actually in on him, not him on to her. And it was really revealing, and you know, it was interesting, but it was just very incoherent and just happened way too fast. So that's why it takes out a lot of points in that scenario. So when all said and done, if I was to give this a scale out of 10, I would give The Good Liar a 6. So I guess this ends my ride review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Rod Rider saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.